Hello everybody, my name is Max, and today we are going to do something very different from the usual. I found it very fun to just read these magazines because it's just a little bit of an insight of what people thought back in the 90s. So I chose two games, Tomb Raider and Final Fantasy VII. So this particular issue is the issue 10 of the magazine Play. Let's see what's up.
2 seconds later.
This is literally the first thing that you see about the magazines. Whoever did this Photoshop, my dude, you just... What happened to her leg? But yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous how the ads were done on the 90s, because I don't think that this would be seen very well today. The quality of PlayStation games constantly surprises me, usually for the worse. Time and time again through, PlayStation games have proved disappointing. Wow! Each month, Play reviews over 10 games, and after 4 months as editor, I still only ever turn to 2 or 3 of them when I fancy a bash on my PSX. My faith has been restored by Tomb Raider from Core, a game I believe deserves to be a massive because it feels like a true next generation game. Holy f***ing shit! He thought the PlayStation was inferior to Super Nintendo games. And the thing that said to him that it was great wasn't Resident Evil. I don't remember if Resident Evil 2 came out, I guess not. But it wasn't Resident Evil. Resident Evil was already out by the time this review came out. The dude says that it's Tomb Raider. This is insane. I had no idea. Core is a highly professional company, but one that hasn't lost sight of innovation or clever ideas. And it's great to see such a personal game as Tomb Raider make it to the big leagues. This is insanity because when you look back at the PlayStation, there was nothing but praise. And this reminds me to PlayStation 4 and the problem that PlayStation 5 currently have, that it is that they don't have enough games to justify a new console. Because I remember that the game that launched the PlayStation 4 to the sky was Bloodborne, basically. So this is an issue that PlayStation and Sony has since basically the beginning. Resident Evil returns in '97. Hot news from Capcom Japan, it is that Resident Evil 2 will be coming to a PlayStation near you next spring, and it promises to be twice as fast and at least twice as big. Resident Evil 2 will use the same basic game engine, plus some of the original characters, but it was stressed that there will be up to 8 new people to control, each with different abilities. My dude, this has to be Resident Evil 1.5 with Elsa Walker. What is this? That's twice as many as in the first game. While the storyline is kept a deep secret, it is known that the game will still feature the zombies from the first adventure. But the developers are working on some end of level bosses who are big enough to fill up to 6 screens. What? Resident Evil 2 will be far more Americanized than its predecessor. Capcom are determined to make the first game seem like a Sunday picnic. This is crazy that here it's saying that it's going to have, yes, there will be up to new people to control and that some people from the past are going to come back. That's insane. This is crazy. I don't remember ever reading something like that before. What's new? Bigger levels, at least as twice as the first game. Yeah. More characters, up to 8, all controllable and featuring different abilities. Yeah, this is no. I guess that they took all of these ideas and they applied for Resident Evil Outbreak, because this is one of the craziest things I've read in a while about any game. Capcom feels that lots of creepy missions based on a recurring theme, such as chasing a vampire or serial killer, will add more to the gameplay and be significantly different from the first game. Dude! There's a lot of people who about Resident Evil 8. Look what it says here, such as chasing a vampire or serial killer. This has been here as early as Resident Evil 2. Capcom took all these old ideas and they applied for newer games. So this is crazy. Because serial killer here, I guess they're talking about, or maybe this is the way to name Mr. X. And then Nemesis, and then I started trending of having a pursuer, but this is insane that they were spilling the beans here. That's bananas. That's crazy. This is one of the craziest things I've read in a while about a video game. Damien Butt. Damien is the editor and is therefore responsible for everything that goes into the mag. Ian Lynch. Ian is the deputy editor, which means he does all the work while Damien swans off to party launches, orgies, etc. What the fuck? What's up with these magazines? They're unhinged. Murder, death, kill. Stop press. We have heard that the PlayStation rights to Dave Perry's much-touted new PC, Murder, Death, Kill, have been snapped up by Interplay. It's scheduled for a December release and we'll have more news next issue. I cannot believe that they are talking of so many games that I have no fucking clue what they are. Play recommends. Resident Evil, 95%. It doesn't get much better than this. Resident Evil is the perfect blend of the finest horror beans. The graphics are top-notch. Sam is dark and eerie, and you get to crush zombies' head. What more could you ask for? It is crazy that they are saying that it doesn't get much better than this, because Resident Evil Remake was released on 2001 for the GameCube. I don't remember the exact date, but it was in 2001. So it is crazy to me that 6 years later, the remake will come out, and up until this day, it's one of the few remakes that is way better and superior than the original. And think about this. It's been, what, 20 years since Resident Evil Remake came out? And even to this day, it is still granted as one of the best remakes ever done. And even though Remake wasn't the first remake ever done, it definitely is one of the most important because it set the standard of how a remake should be done. All the latest news from the land of lads gun laws from the pen of Cat Buchanan. What the fuck is this? How are you gonna say that? This is so bad, this is so wrong. Crystal Dynamics has shocked the entire American gaming press with the latest PlayStation game, Pandemonium, a sumptuous 3D person arcade adventure game which looks similar to Crash Bandicoot by Sony and Tomb Raider by Core Design, which is also causing a stir over here. You control a jester character, and although the plot and aim of the game is shrouded in its secrecy, it's basically a platform game featuring loads of rendered minis. The closest thing I can compare it is with Mario 64. It really is that good. And remember, Crystal Dynamics also have Blood Omen Legacy of Kain in development at the moment, and that's going to be an RPG fan's dreams. Okay, so I actually have played Pandemonium and Pandemonium 2. The games are very fun, but I highly disagree with the thing that is very similar to Mario 64 because the two games have nothing to do the one with the other. Because Super Mario 64, okay, so both games are platforming, but they're very different because Super Mario 64, it is a free-form or a fully 3D platformer because you can go around and move and go everywhere, whereas Pandemonium is an on-rails adventure platforming type of game. So both games are very fun, but they're nowhere near closest to be similar. I think that the only thing that they are similar is platforming, but everything is different because you really cannot explore that much with Pandemonium because you can only go left and right. It is basically a side-scrolling on rails. Oi, thief, no. Doing the best. DMA has been quiet since Lemmings, haven't they? If you wondered, as we have, what they've been doing with all of that latent talent, then prepare to be amazed. DMA's first PlayStation outing is to Grand Theft Auto, a rip-soaring smoky and devanted style car chase game to be published by BMG. The sole aim is to burn rubber, that's a game and a half. GTA is viewed from above and most resembles the old coin-op APB, or if you want to go back a bit further, Miami Vice on the Spectrum 48K. This is crazy that they had no idea that GTA was gonna be one of the biggest video games ever. Suikoden is to become the PlayStation's first RPG game. Originally called Genso Suikoden in its native Japan, you play Genso, the son of a Red Moon Empire general in command of a bunch of rebels committed to overthrowing the corrupt government of Barbarossa. Ninja Core Design has a bright future on PlayStation. A spectacular looking 3D martial arts adventure beat-em up that looks very much like the last Ninja series created by System 3 in the late 80s on home computers. I have no idea because the biggest game that Core Design ever made was Tomb Raider up until the very end, and anything else, I literally don't know what else they made. Telstar, a legend. Excalibur from Telstar Electronic Studios is a lush graphical adventure that has all the inventiveness and depth of The Legend of Zelda on the Super Nintendo. You play Beth, a humble peasant and apprentice to the wizard Merlin, who has sent to the future to retrieve the legendary sword. See the light, Fade Black. Oh my gosh, have we got a competition for you this month or what? To celebrate the launch of the highly acclaimed 90% rated Fade to Black, reviewed last issue, we're giving away nearly 1,500 worth of goodies, including an awesome Sony video projection system, plus several copies of the game itself. First prize, one lucky person will be the proud owner of Sony's 60 inches video projection system worth over 1,200, plus a copy of the Fade to Black. Crash Bandicoot, the big game. The PlayStation's mascot, Crash Bandicoot, is about to burst on the scene this October. In a special in-depth, a look at Sony's answers to Mario and Sonic. Play explores the down-under world of the Coot. When the man from Sonic came down with a 90% complete version of the game, we were impressed. That's how they know. All the hype about Crash Bandicoot being the PlayStation's first real next-generation game has been proved right. Just think, soon we could have cuddly toy Crash Bandicoots to hold up at night, talk to when we bored, and goof up when mad. Yes, dudes, our mascot is here, and I still can't get over the name. I'm going to say right now, I hate that. I absolutely hate that, because now there is a trend of making certain games just to sell you products. Like, for example, a good example, it is Bendy and the Ink Machine, and the one that is with the wooey fuzzy thing. Those games weren't done to just make the game and that's it. They were just done to sell you merch. So I don't like this take because it has aged poorly, if I'm honest. The graphics in Crash Bandicoot are without a doubt the PlayStation's most luscious and technically advanced. When Naughty Dog, the developer, was drawing up the specifications, they wanted to produce a game that would push the technological curve in its genre. Look what it says here, so even though I really don't like the direction that The Last of Us has taken, they have always pushed for innovation. Even with Crash Bandicoot, because I think that this was one of their first games, if not the first one. But they were always trying to push the technological curve. It doesn't come from The Last of Us. It's difficult to pinpoint precisely what makes the visuals in Crash so superlative. Everything. The color is cartoon-like and vivid. The levels are incredibly detailed and remain so, even in motion. Never do you see a blocky pixel. Polygon pop-up is a thing in the past and there are no clipping errors. Streamed constantly from the CD as you play, the variety in the graphics is outstanding, constantly delivering you an entrancing visual banquet and all in real time too. None of this pre-rendered stuff. Yeah, well, this is a big thing because remember, Resident Evil 1 and 2, even Resident Evil 3, they were all pre-rendered backgrounds. Even with Parasite Eve, it is the same thing, so it is crazy that these backgrounds aren't pre-rendered but 3D as well. So the only issue that I have right now is that they are not talking about what the game is. This first paragraph, this should have been, what is this game about? I'm making a great hook and then talk about all the specifications. This should have started with, this is a 3D what is Crash Bandicoot platforming? This is a fully 3D platforming that will put insane Super Mario 64, for example, let's say. So they're talking a lot about the innovations, but if I didn't know what was this game about, by just reading this and seeing this, I have no fucking clue what the game is about. One of the first levels in the game sees you instantly drop into a 3D world where you must travel up in the screen. 1. The level unfolds as you turn the corner. Notice the horizon and the superlative detail in the distance. Why is this on? Why they live here? Why they chose this screenshot? Because I barely can see anything. 2. Crash is getting cocky. Only ruins to jump over. 3. To the temple. Crates with question marks on them to reveal random bonuses. Wasn't the question marks, they give you a little bit of a random number of apples? 4. The Aku Aku mask gives Crash a limited period of invincibility. 5. Which way now? 6. A cheeky turtle tries to rob Crash of his lunch money. 7. The end of the level. Crash Bandicoot is concerned with saving his girlfriend from the evil Dr. Nia Cortex. Cortex has created a castle fortress on 3 islands off the coast of Tasmania and set out to create an army of intelligent animals with which he can take over the world. He and his right-hand man, Nitrous Brio, have created two machines in order to create these sapient creatures. The first is the Evolvo Ray, which creates Einsteins out of animals, and the second is the Cortex Vortex, which Cortex hopes to use to make them battle-ready. Currently, the Evolvo Ray works properly, the Cortex Vortex doesn't. Crash is the most recent test run of the two machines, and as far as Cortex is concerned, the greatest failure. The previous test, Ripperoo, an insane kangaroo, Koala Kong, the Stallone of koalas, and Pinstrip Potoru, a Potoru who thinks he is a godfather, are loose on the island, serving Cortex to the best of their abilities. Crash has no desire to serve Cortex, so he has been exiled to a distant island in the chain of these evil sod commands. The next test is on Crash's girlfriend, Tauna, and Cortex is furious, and has turned the Cortex Vortex on to maximum for Tauna. Crash doesn't want to find out what this setting can do to a female bandicoot. This is crazy because I have no fucking clue. How do you even know about this on the game? Because this is never explained on the game. I cannot believe that I have to come to a magazine on the 1996 to read what Crash Bandicoot is about. If you don't know, and you may have guessed, English isn't my main language because I am from Caracas, Venezuela. And I know that back then they sold you the game plus the little guide. So I guess that if you read it, you know the story. But I think that that's got fucking awful because you shouldn't read anything outside of a game to understand the game and know the motivations. I mentioned all the things about Venezuela because they didn't sold those guides on Venezuela. I didn't even knew that existed or was a thing up until like I was 20 or something like that. I never knew that he was a byproduct of Cortex, which is crazy to me. What the fuck is this ad? Last year, 32-bit gaming was born. Only now it can it be christened Starfighter 3000, the reason you bought your 32-bit games machine. Okay, so let's see. Wipeout 2097. In the gaming community, Psygnosis is being acknowledged as the leading PlayStation firm. With a killer autumn line up on the way, Play dons the trench coat of investigative journalism and goes scrap hunting. Wipeout 2097, Destruction Derby 2, and Monster Trucks. Can you have too much of a good thing? But this is from some racer games. And this game, by the time the magazine was released, it was halfway through. So it's crazy to me that they were even showing things about this game halfway through because they could have just changed everything. Okay, so finally, after almost an hour and a half, I've been recording, and this is again the very first magazine. By the time they made this post of Tomb Raider, they were halfway, a little bit more than halfway way of making the game. So again, this is crazy to me because no developer would do this nowadays. We've been after this baby for months, and finally the word came through that Tomb Raider from Core was ready to unveil exclusively to Play readers. I blow raspberries in its general direction. It may have blood, zombies, and corny acting, but it's not exactly speedy, is it? Well, Core Design has a new game, and it's going to wipe the rapid force from RE lips and then kick it into touch. It's called Tomb Raider, and if it isn't the best PlayStation game so far, then I'm quite willing to park my new sports car underneath a canopy of weak-bladdered seagulls. Trust me on this one. Here at Play, we rarely give our front cover to just anything. We have had Dark Forces, Resident Evil, Soul Edge, and now this month, Tomb Raider. But why should you be getting all excited over this hitherto unknown game? Well, if I say that it is bigger, faster, cleverer, contains more traps and puzzles, and has a better looking central character than Resident Evil, then you'll be surely interested, right? Hello boys! Tomb Raider is a 3D adventure game featuring the English explorer Lara Croft, whose lifelong quest is to find an artifact called the Scion. To do this, she must explore 10 labyrinths found all over the world, from ancient Greek to Aztec and Egyptian. And in each, there are many puzzles to solve and a labyrinth beast to conquer. It's no place for a girly, you may think, but Lara's made from tougher stuff than must, and to help her, she has a pair of rapid fighting pistols, a torch, Swiss Army knife, ball of twine, and quite the most lethal pointy breast the size of Madonna. Oh my god. But I wish that she had a Swiss Army knife, because as I can recall, that has never been in any of the games. That is well equipped to deal with any situation, be it creepy old Nazis, crackle Frenchmen, grizzled bears, wolves, crocodiles, man-eating plants, or snakes. What the fuck has to be creepy old Nazis has to do anything with Tomb Raider? There hasn't been a single Tomb Raider game located or nearby or surrounding the mythology or anything that happened on Germany, so what the hell? Where is this coming from? The game is played in third-person perspective, which basically means Lara is directly in front and slightly below you in the game, and this affords a wider vista so that you can see the enemy approaching. Like Fade to Black, though, as you wander through the catacombs, the camera moves dynamically depending on your path inputs, and there's scope for standing on the edge of a precipice and rotating the camera so you can see the chasm below. The walls in the programming then are plastered with hundreds of sketches, photos and photocopies of many different temples, ziggurats, and pyramidal structures spanning every conceivable ancient civilization. These are the basis inspirations for the complex labyrinths that make up Tomb Raider's 10 levels. I wanted an alternative view to all that first-person Doom shit, of which there is far too much. Tomb Raider is a cross between Prince of Persia, which is an excellent game for traps and pitfalls, and Indiana Jones films. We then spend a while talking about some classic old games before returning to the central character of Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, a feisty, pointy, athletic woman with a pair of creepily tight hot pants and a crop top. Clearly, there are hints of Pamela Anderson in there, or even Tank Girl perhaps? Lara is not based on anyone in particular, explains Guard. Certainly not Pamela Anderson or Tank Girl, although the similarities are there because she's a fit-looking girl. I say she's more Sandra Bullock than Pamela Anderson, feisty but with a brain. So why the female lead character is something of a novelty in a work account to the Duke Nukes? Guard again. The perspective we've chosen means that for most of the game, you are looking at the character's backside. I thought it would be more preferable to look at the rear of a noble young woman than a muscly bloke who's of a grooming for the rest of the team. And I also wanted the game to stand out from the crowd. So they made literally they're saying here, at least here Toby is admitting that he did it for the boys. The targeting system in Tomb Raider is very clever. If your opponent is in the hot spot, both guns will snap to it. Otherwise, each arm will lock to the closest target within the range of its own fields. Yes, and they put this image here. Yeah, that happens a lot. Something that didn't happen up until Tomb Raider Underworld is Lara having the ability of targeting two enemies at the exact same time. So I really want for the next Tomb Raider game not only to have that, but my god, they have to bring back the fucking dual guns. In many occasions, you have to change to other weapons because if not, it's going to take you forever to destroy anything. So I hope they bring back that because I miss having those guns because it's such a big part of Lara's identity, and it was a crime that she was robbed of that with Tomb Raider 2013. Dead Heat in the Zeppelin race. One unique aspect of Tomb Raider is the way Lara uses her weapons and how they target the enemy. When you start the game, you are in a small cavern which is suddenly full of ravenous wolves leaping in all directions. If it was a Doom-style perspective, all would you do is back yourself into a corner, shouting macho obscenities and keep pumping away while sidestepping from left to right. But because you played Tomb Raider from behind and above the character's line of sight, it will be nigh on impossible to shoot at a moving target with any degree of accuracy. Tomb Raider solves the problem with a clever targeting system, which means that Lara automatically lines her sights or anything in front of her and follows its movements wherever it goes. If, for example, a wolf or grizzly bear stands directly in front of her, both pistols remain fixed on the target, Reservoir Dogs style. Apart from the 3D engine, which conveys the depth and menace of the levels perfectly, the most impressive thing about Tomb Raider is the animation on Lara and the many creatures characters she faces. I'm told that the polygon count on Lara is upwards of 4,000, which certainly accounts for the detail and number of moves she seamlessly breaks into. So imagine in this game, in the first Tomb Raider game, Lara was using 4,000 polygons, and this was impressive because we're talking that this was 1996. And on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the last Tomb Raider that was released, she had millions of polygons more than on this game, which it is bananas. It is crazy. And people were so excited about this. Tomb Raider is one of the first games on PlayStation that has actually impressed us. Oh sure, there has been the odd level or graphical effect that they elected and from the play team. But this is a game that has everyone fired up at the moment, so it was vital to get the exclusive, which we did. It goes without saying that you should seriously consider Tomb Raider for your collection. And even though the game is first coming out on the Sega Saturn in October, you can still sit back and smile at those sad Sega owners because we've heard it straight from the horse's mouth that PlayStation is by far the best version, and it's significantly faster too. Tomb Raider will be released in November, and we'll have a review soon, don't miss it. My god, August, September, October, November, so they had 3 fucking months since this review came out to finish the game, and they were halfway through there. My god, Jesus Christ, Core was crazy. This would be inhumane right now. This will create so many issues. And look at the con game that was released recently, or the last year that everyone was mocking. That game was made in 1 fucking year. And there is a reason why it looks so bad, because you cannot realistically make a video game in a year. At least a good video game. So it's crazy. It's crazy what they were doing here. Lara turns from attacking the guy in red shirt. The more immediate danger. A wolf bounding in from the left. See how both her hands are targeting the animal, but her feet are still facing forward. Amazing. This actually never happens on game. I guess that this is an early build because when you fight Larson, if I recall his name, there are not animals in there. There are not any other enemy in the combat. So yeah. And it's so weird that they're pimping up Larson so much because as far as I recall, you kill him after you finish the first level that it is Peru, I think it is, when you fight the Lost Valley. After finding the dinosaurs and everything, you already kill the T-Rex by the time you fight Larson. So this has to be something early that was discarded. But yeah, that was everything about Tomb Raider and only took me almost 2 hours. Okay, so let's see what's else in this magazine because we're not done. Andretti Racing. I guess that this dude here is gotta be Andretti, right? Yes! Tunnel B1. First-person perspective shoot 'em ups are all rage at the moment, especially with the wild realism that the 3D polygon worlds allow. Can Ocean's labyrinthine effort to take the genre new depths? Thundering in Hearts Ocean's new line-up games have been causing a storm of PlayStation circles over the past few months, especially with German developer Neon on their books. The titles, Tunnel B1 and Viper, have already impressed many for the technically advanced 3D engine and superlative graphical effects. Time to grab the scalpel and dissect the first of the eagerly awaited products. See? The thing that I said earlier, Play is focusing so fucking much about the technical aspect. Just fucking tell me more about the game. So all we know is that it is a first-person perspective shoot 'em up. Just fucking tell me about the game, man. Stop talking so much and losing your mind about graphics and tell me about the game, because imagine that I give a review of Parasite Eve. You know, it is an isometric type of game, and this game has much better than Final Fantasy VII graphics because Aya Brea actually has a 3D fully rendered model. You can walk in those backgrounds without fluidity, and the graphics are crazy because compared to Final Fantasy VII that released a year earlier, Parasite Eve is a huge monster. And also, the game is super scary because there are monsters and the music is spooky and the music is great and it is amazing. And did you know that the game Parasite Eve had used a blend of 2D and 3D engines of a mix of Final Fantasy VII and VIII? Because, okay, but you haven't told me what the game is about. So the ramble I made right now is, I feel like this is what Play is doing. I've been reading this magazine for almost 2 hours and all the reviews are the same. The editors are losing their mind about graphics and engine, and they waste so much of my time. Terrifying, atmospheric, engrossing, and unmissable are just some of the words that won't be appearing in this review of Sony's first and hopefully last undersea adventure. Space Hulk, Vengeance of the Blood Angels. The Games Workshop masterpiece has finally made its way onto our great baby. Regarded as a cult classic by many, can this long-awaited conversion live up to expectation? Borderly hilarious, that's the best way to describe Space Hulk. Originally a Games Workshop role-playing board game and first converted to the 3DO last year, Electronics' art chess-like wargame is one of the most involving yet light-hearted games available for the PlayStation. Darkstalkers, the Night Warriors. Admit it, you love them. 2D beat'em ups, that is. Combat King Capcom tries hard to put the willies up us all with Spooky Fighter. Actra Golf. Oh god, massive supersonic racers. I thought that this was a game related to Sonic. It's just a racing game. Boom! Blast Chamber. Is the name of the game in Activision's claustrophobic bomb caper. Blast Chamber. The gameplay takes place in 3D, in one of 40 single-player or 20 multiplayer rotating modes. The main object of the game is to collect pulsing crystals which must be placed in your color-coded transmitter. Okay, so this is basically a fancy Bomberman. But here, I don't understand. With other reviews that were more important than this game, they here on the first fucking paragraph, you know what the type of game is, you know what to expect, you know everything that you need to know about the game, and then they trash talk about the game or say whatever they want about the game. So I don't understand. This is all over the place. This is so weird. Is it me? Adeline Duo, Frederick Reinald, and Oliver Lethermere, creators of the forthcoming Tank Commando and Little Big Adventure 2 for the PlayStation, we gladly eat English beef, prefer video games to sets, and have a definite idea of what makes a great action game. Play cornering them for some typically defensive. Tank Commando! I literally have this game on wishlist on Steam or I think I already bought it. Because I remember playing this game as a child. The game, I don't have a fucking clue what the story was about because I was a kid. This is one of the earliest games I played, and I played it on PC. And on the game, you are like someone from the future that had some type of accident or something like that, and you're in the past. You have to get back to the future, and you start to fight people, and you grab arms and weapons from that era, and you start to fight. Then you jump to the old. Then you jump to the other era. For example, you go from the primitive era to the Greek era, and you start to grab weapons from that era, and you go like that. The game is super fun. I wasn't expecting that this magazine was going to talk about Time Commando. Now we are going to jump into Final Fantasy VII and see what people were talking back in '97. So, okay. At least what is this? ID Anthology. The Lost Games, the recent hits, the book, the limited edition collectible. With a cover story being Dragon Force, the wonderful new simulation RPG by Working Designs, perhaps now will be a good time to talk about the current RPG situation in the US, which is, well, slow to say at least. As many of you are well aware, some of the biggest and best RPGs released in Japan have never made their way to the US, for various completely unacceptable reasons. The most notorious, of course, is what many agree as one of the best RPGs ever created, Square's Final Fantasy V, released in 1992. This 16 megabit wonder, at the time it was the largest Super Famicom game available, was scheduled to be released in the US under the title Final Fantasy Extreme, because the game was considered to be extremely tough compared to the rest of its series. It wasn't tough, it was just complex, but to bonehead company bigwigs, that means too much for the fickle-minded American consumer. Anyway, the game went through various stages of development, but never made it here, ultimately being canned, along with the sequel to Secret of Mana. So Square could instead work on the American-made Secret of Evermore, which remains one of the purest excuses of an action RPG ever. This infuriated RPGers to no end, causing a number of letter-written campaigns that end up failing. Afterwards, the Super Nintendo went on to see its shares of RPGs, but in comparison to what was released in Japan, the US got maybe 5% of the amount of good RPGs released over there. The fact that this magazine is saying that Final Fantasy V is great is bananas and crazy to me, because you have Final Fantasy VI, my dude, and this is January 1997, so Final Fantasy VI was already released, and Final Fantasy VI is leaks better than Final Fantasy V. Final Fantasy V created and introduced, or at least introduced, a much better job system than Final Fantasy III. But it's the one that cemented this idea of a job system that eventually will be further expanded with Final Fantasy Tactics. So it's crazy to me that whoever wrote this is upset about that and know about SIDS, because SIDS has a much better story than 7. I know that I'm talking about Final Fantasy 7. I know that this is controversial, but I like the story of Final Fantasy 6 much better than 7. But so, if RPGs are in such demand, why aren't we seeing more of them here? If it weren't for Walking Designs, who pick up the rights to several popular Japanese RPGs for the Saturn and Konami, who are porting their two great epics from Japan, Suikoden and Vandal Hearts, to the PlayStation, we'd have virtually nothing coming our way in a few months. Sure, we'll see Final Fantasy VII, and I'll take a lot of heat for saying this, but those who have been with the series from the beginning know it's true.
This is
the series pales in
torture.
comparison to what it
You're
was in late years
torturing
of
me
the
and
Famicom
everyone else
and the early days
watching.
of the Super. So I'm going to say right now, I think that this dude, he had his heart in the right place, but my god. My dude, you were sleeping on Final Fantasy VI, you were sleeping on Final Fantasy IV, you were sleeping even on Final Fantasy II. There's many people that shit on Final Fantasy II and they have never played. I will forever die on the hill that Mingu is the best white mage ever in the entire franchise. There is not a white mage as good, as powerful as Mingu, and the fact that no one knows because everyone keeps saying that Final Fantasy II is shit just because it has a very different gameplay system. This entire column shows you why Final Fantasy VII is big, because even John, even the editor, is it's putting aside Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII was the game that put RPGs not only on the US, but put RPGs in the entire world. John's heart was in the right place, but my god, you made many mistakes by disregarding again Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI, and especially disregarding Final Fantasy VII, brushing and putting it aside. So that was a big mistake from your part, John. Just one day before we went to press with this issue, Nintendo held their annual Shishonkai Famicom Space World exhibition, now known as Nintendo 64 Space World, in Chiba, Japan. Of course, IG was on hand to check out all the happenings, and we decided to sacrifice 2 pages of news to offer you the very first info on a Nintendo shows of shows. Don't worry, it's much more interesting than the news would have been anyway. So they're talking about the 64DD. The big news of the show was obviously Nintendo new 64 disk drive, add-on for the Nintendo 64. Although no definite price point was announced, and the unit was only on display behind glass, there were no playable games. It is expected to be released before the end of 1997 in Japan for under $200. What the fuck is this ad? I didn't notice. At the end of your road, Video Game Spot is here for you. We are your guide to the eye-popping world of video games. Our multi-step online program of reviews, previews, video demos, hints and cheats on all the latest video games and console platforms gives you the information you so desperately need. What the fuck is this ad? Magazines were unhinged back then. Right now, with our current era, people will go bananas. This will be highly criticized. PlayStation Expo 96-97. Ooh. PlayStation's new analog control pad. Perhaps the biggest announcement at the PlayStation Expo, Sony Computer Entertainment unveiled a new analog control pad for the PlayStation to the public for the first time. The controller, which comes in 3 different colors, has not 1, but 2 analog thumbpads, as well as a unique new mechanism that allows for vibration to come from the pad when certain actions are performed on screen, sort of like force feedback. Unfortunately, no price and/or release date for the new controller was announced, but expected to launch with a game that will successfully exploit its features. I mean, imagine how those dudes were lose to their minds with a controller like this. Like, imagine if someone in 96, 97 series, they will just lose their mind, because this is a wireless control. This is like nothing. This is nothing special. So it is crazy reading that they were losing their minds with the joysticks, basically. Square, while having a presence at the show, only had 1 game available to actually play. The game has been delayed until January 31st, 1997 in Japan, and will now be 3 CDs huge, instead of the previously planned 2 CDs. Although not much more of the game was shown off since the Towel No. 1 demo CD, Square did add a few more summoning spells to the battle action to show off the game's incredible graphics. Some of the new call spells included Tyrant, Ifrit, and Ramuh. Konami had a few impressive games on display, including several new additions to the Parody series, including Forever With Me and Paro Wars, not to mention the hot 2D shooter Setsi Parodius. However, sports parodies and teenage chicks aside, easily the most anticipated Konami game in years was on display in limited form, Metal Gear Solid. Designed by the same creator as Snatcher and Police Snouts, MGA Solid is shaping up to be one of the PlayStation's huge hits along the lines of Resident Evil and Final Fantasy VII. The limited screen shows amazing 3D graphics and are, overall, pretty dark like the past two games in the series. It's crazy that they don't mention here Kojima because back then Kojima wasn't that big name. He gained his reputation with Metal Gear Solid. About Metal Gear Solid, I have to say, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I consider that Metal Gear Solid was the first video game ever that took voice acting seriously. Because you can play this game today and the voice acting, I would say that carries 50 to 60% of the game alone. Because the gameplay is nothing special. But the story, but especially the voice acting is so good, is so insanely good that it's easily one of the best things about the original Metal Gear Solid. That's why I personally dislike Metal Gear Solid 5 so much because voice acting alone, Metal Gear Solid is so much better than Metal Gear Solid 5, even though everyone keeps insisting that the gameplay of Solid 5 is great, which yeah, it is, but everything else is garbage. Even the voice acting is garbage compared to the original, and the original released in 1997, so it's a really shame that a game that was released, 2014, was worse in every sense except the gameplay, than a game that was released in 1997. What the hell is this? The vanguard of a terrifying new level of immersed technology. By far the most addictive multiplayer action game. Quake overwhelms the senses. Wow, Quake. Project Overkill. One of the longest, toughest, most violent shooters ever. Game fan. I always say that with all games. They end up not... Woo! This is a jump scare! What the fuck is this? You don't need guts to play this game. You just gotta know where to put them. Want to play doctor? Here's your chance to diagnose, treat, and hopefully discharge a healthy living patient. CD-ROM today's calls Emergency Room a fast-paced, realistic medical adventure. My dude, this is a jump scare. Guns don't kill robots. Cybertubes with napalm bombs kill robots. Wow, Virtua Cop 2. Man, for some reason this lady's head, I don't know why, this has a very strong Cyberpunk 2077 vibes. The original trailer back on 2016? No, the one. Atlus stalls Devil Summoner and brings us another game in the Mega 10 series. Originally the latest in the immensely popular Megami Tensei series in Japan, Persona is not the kind of RPG Western gamers are used to. Although the basic elements should be familiar to any RPG fan, the style, storyline, and overall feel of Persona is strange, to say at least, and at times bordering on surreal. Tunnel B1. So we were talking about Tunnel B1. I think it wasn't released yet. It's kind of hard to describe Tunnel B1, really. At first glance, it looks like a racing game, which it can be, sometimes. It may look like a Doom clone to you, which again, it can be. Or perhaps it's more like Descent, with its mission-based levels. Again, sure, but it doesn't really play a whole lot like Descent either. Tunnel B1 isn't terribly innovative all by itself, but it manages to be convincing through an interesting synergy of all the above games. You pilot a heavily armored vehicle through the courses, which are constructed like canals, perhaps a futuristic highway. Each level has at least one primary secondary mission pair associated with it, with later stages having 2 or 3 primary objectives. So that was it for this magazine. I thought that it was gonna talk more about Final Fantasy because my point was to see more behind the scenes of the game, but clearly it didn't happen. It was just these dudes rambling that there weren't more RPGs, and I 100% understand it because back then there weren't many. Alright, so we are back with Tomb Raider. So this is again Play Magazine. This is for December 96. So Tomb Raider was already out. Get smashed at the wheel. See, this is a much better ad than seeing just some random ladies right in your face. I could have filled this issue of Play twice over. Such is the number of hot new PlayStation games thirsting for your wallet cash this Christmas. Many games had to be cut down, shift into other sections, or simply left off the shelf until next month because the PlayStation gaming scene has gone nuts all of a sudden. You've got to hand it to Sony. It sure knows how to market a new piece of technology. Personally, Tomb Raider has been taking up all my spare time this month, and it's the most fiendish game I have ever encountered. If you like a challenge, it is one of the finest games money can buy. Check out my definite review on page 38. It's crazy because the last magazine a couple of months ago, they were talking about how trashy the PlayStation was. Christmas turned on, Spice Girls switched on London's lights for Sony. You have to admit, the PR for Sony are switched on dudes, and to celebrate what is bound to be the PlayStation biggest ever Christmas, they enlisted the help of Pop Beatons, the Spice Girls, to switch on the Oxford Street lights in London. The traditional ceremony was thought to be cancelled this year due to the lack of funds, but Sony stepped in with £75,000 and the hugely popular girl group. Mine's the one with the dark hair who doesn't sing much, so hands up. My god, what's up with you? You can name them at the last minute. Unfortunately, by the time you read this, the Spice Girls will be long gone as it took place on the 7th of November, though you can still revel in the aftermath all through the Xmas period. This is just the start of Sony's mega marketing campaign for the silly reason, which is propelled by a budget over £40 million. There are now over 200 PlayStation games according to Sony. Compare that with the puny Nintendo 64, which is only expected to have around 6 for its launch in the middle of the next year. The Nintendo 64 hasn't released yet! Wow, that's why we were talking and they were saying about the thing about Legend of Zelda in the last magazine. The Nintendo 64 wasn't released yet. Oh my god, why didn't I connect that? What is this? Petition against Dominic Whedon. What the f? We, the undersigned, wish to submit an official complaint against Mr. Dominic Whedon of the 13th Groove commentary. Lastly, we will demand that Mr. Whedon be restrained from play acting scenes from Crash Bandicoot, the PlayStation video game in his garden, as he created noises and disturbance all night long, lowering the tone of the neighborhood. And there is this dude in white diapers because, my god, this is one of the most weird, out of mind, bizarre ads I have ever seen in my entire life about a game. Stormy times for EA. Software giant signs exclusive deal with Blizzard Entertainment. This is also so hurtful to my soul because Blizzard was also big. People loved Blizzard. They were huge, they were big. Between Warcraft and Diablo, they were kings, and it's so sad where they are now. Castlevania X will now be called Dracula X Symphony of the Night in Japan, and what's more, it's been delayed until spring 97, which is bad news for all you vampire hunters out there. You play Alucard, Dracula backwards, predictable, the son of the Bloodsucker, and new weapons include a variety of swords, but strangely, no whip. All previous Castlevania games have featured whips. Hopefully the developers will make it more next gen. This is such a crazy and banana statement because Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of the best looking games for the PlayStation right now, and it has aged so well. Unlike, for example, here that they were promoting Soul Edge, that you can see that, you know, most of these style of these games haven't aged as well as Castlevania because Castlevania has such a unique identity and the animation is so smooth, and the way that Alucard dashes back and how he does all his attacks and unique animation for those attacks is bananas. So this thing that, oh, they hope that the graphics are more next gen, my dude, you can tell that this is a game, this is a magazine of this era because this is an insane thing to say. Politics are no more. Religion is a rebellious enterprise. Sounds like utopia? You'd be right. In a manner of speaking, it's syndicate wars. Play gets ready for battle with an exclusive interview with the project's leader. Win a state-of-the-art hi-fi system worth £650. This looks so cool. I remember that at some point, we actually had this exact same one with the space to put the cassettes. My god, I've been living out of Venezuela for 5 years and I even forgot that we had this. Oh no! I feel like they're trying to imply that with this simple of faint light that she is standing sideways and putting her bareback ass out. But my god, this is so awful. This is so... I really don't like this. Tomb Raider. Okay, so we have finally arrived to the big thing. She's brave, pert, spunky, and knows how to handle and use it. She's Lara Croft, and this is the best game of the year. Lara laughs. Tomb Raider's essential gameplay was summed up instantly by a porty Irish fellow I know. It's Prince of Persia in 3D. You take control of feisty, bean-explorer Lara Croft, a rich kid rebel who has chosen to spend her life waist-deep in filth or hanging by her fingernails above poisonous spikes, instead of being pampered in a sedate English home by Jeeves the butler, the sole survivor of a plane crash in the Andes. Lara's perception of excitement radically changed, and instead of courting Hugh Grant-like floppy-haired dances, she took to searching for ancient treasures and fighting evil Nazi archaeologists for ancient relics. Sound familiar? Lara has been hired to find the many pieces of a mystical device called the Scion, which has been hidden in various locations around the world, and will give its keeper ultimate power. The first thing that strikes you when booting up Tomb Raider is that it looks unlike anything that has gone before. The sumptuous level of texture map detail throughout the entire game is dazzling, and throughout the use of a highly advanced 3D engine, the developers conveyed instantly the scale of a majesty of lost world you encounter. 1 minute you can be scrubbing around a thin corridor made of granite pieces, and then it winds up into a huge antechamber. Core has used an engine which fades away in the distance to restrict the detail and keep the animation speed high. This works to the game's advantage, however, because it enforces the game's exploration elements. Every shadow hides a secret room or power-up, and you are quickly taught to search every nook and cranny. Levels range from the initial icy caves to a huge Templar maze, a 4 tasks of Hercules subgame, and even a lost world, complete with huge polygon T-Rex and raptors. Every level is completely different and offer would-be explorers an almost unlimited challenge with hundreds of mini-puzzles and tests of hand-to-eye coordination. Lara herself is also one of the most agile and capable video games characters ever created, with a huge repertoire of moves, see butts out, to cop out with every situation, be it crawling along a ledge using only your fingernails, leaping chasm, or just whipping out your 2 pistols and blasting some lions while leaping away from their claws. Lara does it all. The animation is so smooth you expect it to be motion captured, but it's not. Round of applause, please, for Toby Gard. In Tomb Raider, you never know what or who is around the next corner, and having died in a number of gruesome ways, hit the bone shattered when you fall from great height, you adopt a steady pace and never take anything at face value. Unfortunately, with such multi-layer and fiendish levels, you might easily be caught out where, if not for the clever Lara's Eye View mode invoked when you hold down the L1 button. This means you can use the D-pad to scan all around your surroundings and get a good idea of where to go. What a weird way to just say that you can move the fucking camera. Lara, you're a star. Hey, a female Indiana Jones character sounds like a cool idea for a film, but who will play that feisty lead character? What about Sigourney Weaver? She certainly has experience of gorillas, fought aliens in 3 films, looked good in Pat, and she has that proud profile that Lara sports in the game. Or perhaps Linda Hamilton, the dusky temptress from both Terminator films. The music in Tomb Raider is very subtle. For an hour, you might have complete silence except for a few sparse sound effects, but then, as you enter a huge Coliseum chamber, some suitable grand tunes start up and help to enhance the atmosphere of the awesome locations. In many places, the music mimics that of Raiders of the Lost Ark. When will those comparisons end? With thundering great brass sections and staccatos to rival anything by John Williams, Tomb Raider sounds as good as it looks. So you can really tell that the editors played the PlayStation version because of this crystal that is right here. So if you don't know, on Tomb Raider for the PlayStation, you only can save on that crystals. And the issue is that it is 1 crystal per save, meaning that if you use it, that's it. So if you want to save a game, you need to find another, or you need to backtrack and save to other. And this makes the game 100 times harder. In fact, this is one of the things that I like the less about the PlayStation version, because I would say that it is an inflated difficulty. It's really interesting to see because, again, this is 1996. People love this game. This was really revolutionary. There wasn't anything like this before, and the fact that this was a female character, I think that before her, it was Samus, and Samus was in the 80s. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember any other female character that wasn't necessarily sexualized. And in fact, one of the things why Toby left the production of Tomb Raider 2, besides that he was disagreeing with the direction that other devs or that board was taking with Tomb Raider, because Tomb Raider 2 is much more action, but by playing Tomb Raider, you can tell that the engine wasn't done by that, and the game really, the focus of the game has never been combat, at least with the original games. It's more about the adventure, the exploration, the platforming, but the combat is But they wanted combat, and they feature a lot of combat with Tomb Raider 2, and the marketing team went bananas with Tomb Raider 2 with the sexualization of Lara, which Toby wasn't discussed, and he tried, as far as I remember, he tried to fight that. He couldn't, and he was like, okay, then do whatever the fuck you want. Goodbye, bitches. And the only time that he came back was either for Tomb Raider Legends or Anniversary, one of those two, and for Tomb Raider 2015. I think that for those 2 or 3 games, he came back. He gave his blessing, and he was very happy with the direction that they were taking Lara. Which, as I stated earlier, I really don't like the trilogy because it amounted to nothing. It's been 10 years and Lara is still becoming the Raider that she's gonna be. Look at this computer, Gateway 2000, Mortal Kombat Trilogy. What's up with this awful bloody font over the other one? This looks fucking awful. Wipe out. What the f is this? Not related. Oh god. Eating things out of the tinfoil with Peter Molyneux. You cannot trust whatever he says. Every time that he opens his mouth, it's bullshit. Do you feel there are any new gaming genres left, or are we destined to see rehashes of the same ones over and over again? Yes, I think there are always new ways to approach games development. It is hard to say if there are any new games genre left. I hope so. But you can also approach existing genres from new and different angles. For example, the most radical thing about Dungeon Keeper is that instead of playing the goody-goody hero, the player plays the part of the evil Dungeon Keeper. In Dungeon Keeper, the badder you are, the more powerful and rich you become. By being evil, you attract the other evil creatures, but you may discover along the way that it's pretty hard to be really bad. By turning a concept on its head, I think we have rejuvenated the gameplay elements too. So no, I don't think we have to rehash existing concepts over and over again. I think we can adapt and change them so we can become fresh, new, and original and exciting. It's good that he is saying this because that's true. I still believe that this comment that he says can be applied for today. I think that, or I wouldn't be surprised that there still are many countless new genres we had no idea existed or could be possible. This is not a genre. This is a market that isn't untapped and hasn't been exploded. But right now we are in the remake era. But something that I have been noticing is that remakes are exclusively done to games that were already great. There's going to be a point where the devs are going to run out of games because not all video games are great. So what will happen once you remake all great games? What then? I think that right now all we need is either a big company or we need a big success, something out of the blue. I think that there's going to be a new market as soon as either a great team or a great company or a small company or whoever makes a really extremely good remake of a bad game. And that in turn will prompt other companies and other studios to say, so we should start to actually remake bad games. I think that will be a great way to show how talented a team is if they can grab a really trashy bad game and make it exceptionally good. There could always be new type of genres. We just need to think, or we just need devs that think out of the box, and we need a publisher that supports it, because the big issue is that I'm pretty sure that right now there are many devs that have many creative ideas, but they are binded by the contracts and they are binded to make these games, and they have to answer to the publishers and shareholders. So I don't know, it's a matter of time, but we are gonna have more genres, baby. Okay, so his interview, he didn't say anything outlandish, thank God. And I think that with that, oh God, I cannot believe that this is how you're going to end. Alright, so now it's the time to read what was the first review of Final Fantasy VII for this magazine Play. Good. Now I'm scared of opening the Play magazines because now I'm expecting something outlandish. Tomb Raider will never appear on Nintendo 64. Boom. And in an instant, all the hopes of Nintendo 64 owners are dashed as Sony secures yet another exclusive deal. Yes, it's true. After lengthy negotiations, it seems that Core Design has signed a deal with Sony to make the Tomb Raider franchise unique to the PlayStation. Final Fantasy VII sells well in USA. Another continent comes to Final Fantasy VII fever. We have just heard that the Square RPG has sold over 500,000 copies in America in just 3 weeks, making it one of the most popular adventure games of all time. Resident Evil 2 demo, the verdict. We were lucky enough to get hold one of the very first American import copies of Resident Evil the Director's Cut this month. And having tossed aside the rehashed original version, we got to grips with the incredible playable demo of Resident Evil 2 that comes bundled with it. This is undoubtedly the main selling point of the whole Director's Cut package, and games players eager to get a taste of the next installment of the Umbrella Sage won't be disappointed. The demo starts with you as Leon Scott Kennedy, patrolling the war-torn streets of Raccoon City, where the inhabitants are being mysteriously transformed into savage zombies. With just a knife or a pistol for cover, you must instantly wade into a pack of hungry undead who refuse to stay down. Once a round of bullets have been dispatched into the decaying torsos, you can then opt to slash them on the ground using the knife. Although whereas before this killed them straight out, now it just seems to anger them more and encourages them to rise once more for another bite. It's worth mentioning that any wounds you sustain are kept until a first aid spray is found. So if a zombie chews you on an arm or leg, the limb will be left trailing behind as you stagger forward. Yeah, I remember that I think on the original Resident Evil game, you don't have any physical indication if you are being damaged or not, and if you are in danger or not. Whereas the thing about the start to limp was added on Resident Evil 2 onwards. This demo basically takes you on a preset tour of a few of the game's streets, shops, and ultimately the RCPD. The most notable point of the start of the demo is when you enter a gun shop, and after narrowly avoiding getting your head blown off by a petrified keeper, the place is plagued by zombies who then proceed to tear the porky elder apart in graphic fashion. From beside his well-chewed corpse, you pick up a pump-action shotgun, which is when the real fun starts. With this high-powered weapon, you can shoot some heads off, blow them in twain, leaving their upper torso still thirsty for more, or even just pick off an arm or a leg for sheer comic value. Upon passing a massacre bots and several dismembered cops, you'll enter the police department whereby several new rooms and puzzles await. Apart from cops to kill and desks to search, this new era offers a range of new camera angles and dramatic effects. Most notable the dripping pool of blood that you encounter just before a hideous new beast drops down from above to devour you. Oh, they didn't even know that this was called a leaker. I can't believe that there was publicity for Pandemonium and Pandemonium 2 because I feel like so few people know about these games. Fuck. Play has some fucking just jump scares. This is a fucking ad for Ace Combat 2. What the fuck has anything this to do with Ace Combat 2? I guess that they're trying to imply that the G-forces to your face, but my favorite by far has to be Ace Combat 3 Electrosphere. It was one of the few video games that had a very, very, very strong publicity on Venezuela, because there was no publicity of games in Venezuela, never. And I remember that for some reason, Ace Combat 3's Electrosphere was everywhere on Caracas. Like, everything was filled with Ace Combat 3 pamphlets and, images on the walls and murals. So here we are, finally, the big review of Final Fantasy VII. Attention! By loading Final Fantasy VII, you are entering a world so vast you may never be retrieved. In extreme cases, you may not even wish to be retrieved. Proceed with caution, player. Discretion advised. They are not wrong, because the whole reason why Square is remaking Final Fantasy VII is that, if I recall correctly, when the PS2 launched, they did like a prototype thing of on engine showdown of the PS2, and it was the dance that Squall has with Rinoa on Final Fantasy VIII. And then there is the big and fabled and popular demo proof of the PS3 capabilities with the opening of Final Fantasy VII. And that particular thing, I think it was launched in 2005, 2006. And basically, people bitched a lot for almost 10 years that they wanted a Final Fantasy VII remake. People were desperate. People were claiming this remake. And finally, they unveiled it on 2015, and it was a miracle that Final Fantasy VII remake even came out. 1.5 million Japanese PlayStation owners pre-ordered this game to get it on the very first possible day of release. Very soon, you are going to be able to buy a copy for yourself. Final Fantasy VII is set in the two-level city of Midgar. This unthinkable large circular metropolis has two distinct types of people coexisting in it, essentially the rich and the poor. In the top level, the big wigs enjoy clean air, beautiful maintained neighborhoods, and the freedom to do pretty much what they want. Razorwood. Directly beneath this luxury is the town constructed to elevate the top floor into the sky, and down here things are not quite so pleasant. Its position under the giant supportive plates of the city above has caused the trapped air to become thick with pollution. Every inch of the sub-city is also completely blocked out from the sunlight, so there is no naturally occurring day or night, just the constant flickering electric glow of artificial fluorescent light. This is one game where the story is actually important. After all, what is an RPG but one story with some fight scenes in between? Most of the chanting tale unfolds via the simple text boxes which appear when you talk to people you find. It's not very interactive with only the odd choice to make in how you reply, but you just won't notice because it's so totally engrossing. There is a real sense of adventure and urgency, especially when you get to one of the many FBN sequences that blend with the in-game engine perfectly. Hellrider. The most important character, the lead role in this epic, is Cloud Strife. He has a huge sword, even bigger spiky yellow hair, and a considerably long and interesting history for someone who looks like he's yet to start shaving. A completely bonkers monster possessed house blocks your path and sprays fire at your party. You'll have to go. People love this fucking house so much because it's so outrageous. It's just like, and it's incredible that they took that and they made it into a full boss battle that is actually very hard. It's incredible. Years later, Cloud has left Soldier under circumstances that slowly become revealed during the game, and as your adventure begins, he has agreed to put his skills into action for an underground rebel force determined to bring down the establishment. This is where you join the story and you fire up your PlayStation. For the few days before you realize that Final Fantasy VII and the fate of its people is more important to you than anything else in life, company names are recommended here. Consider spanking. No. Don't tell the names. If a game allows you to change the name of a character on your first playthrough, always, every time, no matter the game, always choose the original game, the game that the game is telling you. So if it is Cloud, it's Cloud. If it is Ares, sadly it's Ares, even though I'm going to call her Ares. But don't put stupid names, especially for the first playthrough, because it's going to ruin the experience. You shouldn't need to hear the Japanese sales figures to work out that Final Fantasy VII is not in any way a normal RPG. The flat and boring interface that almost every other RPG uses to travel from fight to fight has been completely avoided in Final Fantasy VII. No, you are instead constantly surrounded by beautiful computer-rendered artwork with a solid and wonderful magical appearance. The heavenly scenery is often one huge piece of art that is several screens wide or tall, forcing the camera to pan across it, and an embedded 3D plane of movement that makes for great presentation. So I don't think that many games were doing that type of camera work, but again, that has aged as milk because that's fucking annoying. I don't want a camera that is constantly just moving around. It's like, my god, just let me do the action. King Behemoth. Each new room, village, or sector reinforces the idea that these are easily the most tasteful and dramatic scenes of any adventure title you can think of. In this mode, you talk to anyone who looks interesting, wander into stores to buy or sell armor, weapons, and material magic. Find healing potions in the streets and run from various hazards, like exploding reactors that you may or may not be responsible for. In bizarre contrast to this splendor, the actual people who wander around these astonishing vistas, from Cloud himself to the kids on the street have almost nothing in the way of detail. Some scenes let you walk fairly close to the camera, Resident Evil style, so you can really get a good look at what's missing. For example, characters don't have any hands, characters don't have any hands, which is odd, or mouths, which is just plain weird. A strange decision you may think for a cutting-edge game of this caliber, but it means everyone looks unbearably cute with only masses of hair and large glassy eyes. And when they get in a fight, everything changes. Almost too sweet for words, this is the picturesque little hamlet away from the city noise and joke where Earth lives. And this is nothing compared to Remake. I cannot believe that Square actually made a render remake of this. This is never used in the game. Earth is never nearby this ship, so I wonder if now this time she's going to be nearby the ship. The combat has to be the biggest pull of Final Fantasy VII. For this, the entire game moves up a gear and pulls out all the stops. You are whisked from your walkabout adventure to a full 3D texture map environment with rapidly switching camera angles, placing magic attacks, and so many crazy monsters. Even all the wacky Japanese programmers stuffed into Square's Meguro building must have been running out of ideas towards the end. You guys suddenly get noses, mouths, and hands, and expand to normal human proportions. Finally, a game of strategy and wits that looks fantastic. Besides the high-quality visuals, real-time battle is the key element that is arousing unashamed geeks around the planet for Final Fantasy VII. As you will know, most RPGs, including Suikoden and Vandal Hearts on PS1, force a turn-based board game like fight that tends to offend action fans with its non-reflex intensive gameplay, but Final Fantasy VII sorts that out. Each person in your party has a time bar, and they have to wait until it reaches the top before you can give them a command. Deja vu. Watch out for Cloud having his premonitions. He usually falls to the floor before having one, so you know to pay attention. They always provide vital clues to the story. My god, isn't this true even for the remake? Another example of the real-time system that it should be called like that, you should be calling ATB bitch, is when one level boss, the guard scorpion, fights you and raises his pointed tail. If you just go ahead and use the same attack pattern on him, he'll counter with the deadly laser tail, but wait a bit and move in when the tail is down and his history. Monodrive. Placement in the pack is taken into account, so weaker fighters should be equipped with long-range weapons for seriously magical power and arranged behind the harder blows with better protection. Anyone can be ordered to defend, and you can even try your luck by holding R1 and L1 to make your whole party move run away, but this won't always work out. Spells and sorcery play a large part too, but the system of upgrading, enhancing, and combining lumps of magic and rich materia gets so brain-twistingly complicated that, last time we checked, Stephen Hawking was having a... Come on, don't be exaggerated, this is not a really big deal, the materia system is really easy. The complexity is that you have many options that you can create many things, but the materia combination itself, it's really easy. After buying this game, you honestly need look no further for your adventuring needs. There cannot possibly be a most accomplished role-playing game until they better develop these virtual reality goggles and rubber bodysuits in preparation for the release of Final Fantasy. What the hell is wrong? This dude is horny. If action is your bag, normally then make the effort to try before you buy it. But it will be difficult to be disappointed unless you didn't know what you were doing. Yeah, I mean, these games are fine. The only thing is that I wouldn't advise to play the original one on the PlayStation. Definitely play the remaster that is on Steam. They always put a discount, so just wait for a discount, a good discount, and just buy it. Play is rated with 93% of approval. If I had to rate Final Fantasy VII, the original, I would put 95, not 93. Because the game is close as perfect when it came out, and it literally revolutionized gaming. There is a YouTuber and a dude in Twitter that I really like. He's called Philip Pastor, and he has great takes about gaming. And I agree in one of the things that he says, that he claims that Final Fantasy VII was the very first AAA gaming ever to exist. And I agree with that, because many video games were shaped by this, because this was a massive success. I was little, I had no idea that Final Fantasy existed up until 2001, when a friend lent me her copy of Final Fantasy VIII, That was the very first Final Fantasy ever that I played. And before that, I had no idea. I didn't know what were RPGs, because my father only bought FPS. He only bought shooters. I don't remember playing a lot of shooters as a kid. Reading these magazines has opened my eyes, because now I'm realizing that I literally know nothing about gaming. And I have to say that it impresses me how many games have been released since basically always, but you have no idea. There are many games on these magazines that are promoted that, what is this? My brother went to Victorian London and all he bought back was this lousy t-shirt. What this has to do with Nightmare Creatures? So there is a review of Resident Evil Director's Cut. If I'm right, the biggest change was that they add the analog option so you can use your joystick. Oh, they added they added new things. Like for example, the zombie of the bathroom. Obtain Purse Forest Bazooka early on, and you get to wander through the first areas with some substantial firepower. Yes, getting his bazooka. Yes. Oh shit, Nightmare Creatures. Now we are talking window shopping. They say you should never walk around London alone after dark. Well, here's several more nasty reasons not to. Nightmare Creatures, I fucking love this game. It's so good. But it has so many issues because you have a thing on your left that it's dropped down. It's like a poison, something like that. And the game literally forces you to just rush the game. You have to rush. That's my biggest issue. And the other is that this game barely connects with the second one. The second one has close to nothing to do with Nightmare Creatures 1. And I wish that Nightmare Creatures come back because the game can be really scary, especially the second one. The second one I think is more scary than the first one because Nightmare Creatures 1 is more about the London thing. It feels like a little bit like Bloodborne, but a worse version. And it's more about fighting the enemies and this action game. But the second one, it's horrifying. It can be really terrifying. And I think that the most terrifying thing is that the controls are fucking garbage. The magazines of this year, 96 to 97, they keep insist of you trying MDK. Before these magazines, I had no idea that MDK was anything. I had no idea. Well, pals, with that view of Nightmare Creatures, I'm going to leave the magazine here because my internet is a little bit funky right now. But I feel like we read a lot. I learned today a lot about gaming. Again, I feel like I am being a faker gamer because I cannot believe that just reading these magazines, I've learned a ton about many things. Like, for example, that interview with Peter Molyneux, I thought it was going to be horrible, but actually it wasn't. It was really insightful, and I guess that he did these type of interviews before he just went bananas and started promising things that weren't true. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Very shocking that people had these high expectations about Tomb Raider. It's insane. They had more expectations about Lara Croft and Tomb Raider than Final Fantasy VII, which is crazy. So Final Fantasy VII exploded after release, but I haven't seen a lot of hype about it because the whole thing about Final Fantasy VII is that they brought RPGs from Japan to the world, and there was this explosion of Final Fantasy around the world. But Tomb Raider was literally a game changer because there wasn't anything like that before. Literally, there wasn't any other game. So I can imagine the pressure of Toby Gard of having this pressure of making this game in 1 year, a year and a half, something like that. Have to make this year a yearly stuff and have each game to be even better than the other one. I can't even imagine what those poor devs had to suffer on those years with Core. So it's incredible to me. I'm so happy that people in the 90s valued Tomb Raider so much because right now the franchise is kind of dead because basically we fans are the ones that the only one keeping it alive. I wish that the developers watch what Capcom has done to Resident Evil and apply that knowledge to Lara Croft because I think there is a lot of potential in a new Tomb Raider game, but they have to separate themselves from everything on the past of Tomb Raider And I'm not saying that they have to do a reboot or something like that, but they need to do some drastic changes. They have to. And I just hope that the trilogy Tomb Raider or that era of Lara Croft just finally dies and moves on, and she's fucking Lara Croft now. And we aren't stuck in this endless loop of Lara becoming the survivor that she's destined to be. Like, bitch, I just want her to be fucking badass. That's it. You don't need to do much more. I'm really glad that at the time, Lara Croft was the shit. She really was the shit, and she was a tour de force. There's no doubt of that in my mind. So I hope that you have enjoyed this little view of the past reading these magazines with me, because I had a lot of fun. If you're still here, thank you very much for being and stuck in here with me just reading these old magazines. If you really like it and I see that it's a positive feedback, I'm willing to just keep doing it and keep reading more old magazines. And I'm willing and open to hear any type of suggestion, suggestions, any tip, whatever you want me to do and whatever you think of how the format should be. I'm very open for that. If I was streaming, I can assure you 1000% that we could dedicate one stream just to reading a magazine and having a lot of fun, because I can see myself doing that, because I just had a lot of fun. Even though I just been recording for 6 hours, I feel like I'm gonna die. I can't wait to see and read your comments and tell me, did you bought any of these magazines? Did you actually just read every little single thing? How long it took you to read all these magazines and absorb everything? Did you just lend in and out your magazines with other friends just to read every news and just sneak it on class to just keep reading what's the news about gaming? Thank you very much for staying uphill until the very end with me, pal. I hope that you have enjoyed the video. Don't forget that you can like and you can subscribe. And I hope that you have a wonderful day, pal. Bye bye.